These files are available free at my mini factory. There's also a diagram to help you put it together. I also have the helmet available and a newer version that's more accurate coming soon. So first up, I modeled everything in Lightwave, and I modeled it in sections for easy printing. As usual, I'm printing with eSun PLA+. I printed some of the smaller pieces on my form too. Here's all the pieces printed and ready to go. You'll also need two rods for this build, 25mm and 8mm diameter, and everything is designed to thread right on those. Here's my completed resin trigger assembly. And as usual, there's always a little cleanup to do. For FDM printing, you sometimes get some spider webbing going on. My absolute favorite thing to clean that up is an alcohol torch. In addition to the two rods, there's also two support pieces that need to be glued in as well. There's plenty of methods for gluing PLA, but epoxy just works for me. Next, I'll go ahead and glue that smaller 8mm rod. I'll also start putting together some of these sub-assemblies. For these, I'm rotating the parts so the epoxy gets evenly distributed. The lenses were printed in resin, and while I have the epoxy out, I'll go ahead and give those a nice glossy coat. With a bandsaw, I'm cutting that 700mm length to that 25mm rod. plastic melts super easily on the belt sander, so I'm being really careful here. And then it's time for some hand sanding.
Six and a half hours later. $2,000 years.
This piece just slides right in, and I'm just going to use some CA to glue it. The piece I cut off the larger rod I'm just going to use as a jig to help secure these other pieces. Pushing the parts together this way ensures that they're lined up correctly. Now I'm going to make sure that the scope fits properly. And it looks perfect. I'm using that same piece to help line up these 3 foregrip pieces. Now it's time for some primer. I ran out of gray, so some of these are white. Using some putty, I'm going to start working on some of those seams. After going back and forth on the stock, I decided to throw some Bondo at it. This is actually the first time I've ever used Bondo, and the directions on the mixture is kind of not great. It's pretty toxic stuff, so be careful if you use it. It actually sanded out really well. Using more of that putty, I'm going to hide some of these seams. A damp cloth works really well to clean it up. Next up, I'm going to put it all together. Since this is glossy, I'm just giving it a light sand so the paint will stick better. Now it's time to glue all those parts together. I taped off a couple masks where these plastic parts glue together. Now I'm threading the smaller rod through just so I have something to help line up these parts as I glue them in place. Just about any kind of silver coating requires a black base coat. I'm using all-clad metallic enamels for this rifle, followed by a clear coat. Using some really thin down paints, I'm adding some red and a little bit of blue to that metal. It has kind of that heat discolored look to it. And now it's time to paint the stock. I'm just varying the color slightly to build up that wood grain look. In addition to that aluminum kind of silver color, I'm also using gunmetal and polished brass. I'm just going back and forth with the aluminum and the gunmetal to get the look I'm after. Now I'm going to go ahead and glue in the trigger assembly. It's finally time to glue those two big parts together, followed by the front part. Then I'll push those lenses in place. I really didn't expect this to work, but that same all-clad airbrush paint actually did okay with a brush. I just had to go over it a couple times. Then I just brushed on a few more details, which look kind of bright, but it'll be toned down with some model wash. I went pretty light with the weathering on this. I just wanted a few extra details that show up when the light hits it just right. No project is complete without some Tamiya Panaline accent color. I'm just making some of these areas stand out a little bit better. On that note, my rifle is complete. As always, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't, and destroy that like button. See you next time.